Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast in partnership with FootJoy. A month or two ago, I sat down with Kristian Baker. Kristian is the co-owner of Sunningdale Heath Golf Club. He is also a teaching professional. He's worked at Wentworth, and his story is a fascinating story from his beginnings in golf and how he went on to become a co-owner of a golf club, and the people he's met along the way, like Sir Clive Woodward, Dave Allred, Iona Stephen. Loads and loads of really interesting stories in here, and Kristian's just an all-round great guy anyway, so sit back and enjoy. This.
So we're just going to keep it really, really light and breezy. I'm going to ask you.
I didn't know
really,
what any of this was going to entail. If I'm
really
honest with you, so when
questions.
you said can we do a podcast, I didn't know if it was going to be with Dan, the greenkeepers, or
no, it's
Sam
going to be
or
with
whoever. So
it's going to be with Kristian,
cool.
the owner,
one of the joint owners. Yeah,
one of the joint owners
of
Sunningdale Heath Golf Club. How long has that been?
So what are we now? We're nearly coming into our fifth year now.
Fifth year.
So yeah, 2019, I think it was kind of 2018, 19, that kind of era.
How did all that come about?
So you want the long story or the short story?
It's his long form media, Kristian. This is a long one.
So where we basically it started was Tom and I were at Wentworth, and obviously there's some big changes going on there, and at the time it meant that we wouldn't be able to teach non-members. And
so you were teaching at Wentworth?
So I was head of instruction,
okay.
And I've been there for 23 years at that point. And teaching was what I loved. And it was a case of, look, we're going to become this very exclusive golf club, so it's going to be members only. And I said to the chief executive general manager at the time, sort of, what does that mean for me? And he said, well, you will only be able to teach members. And I fully respected that. I could see the direction they wanted to go in at that particular time. But it wasn't the direction I wanted to go in, because what if I want to teach tour players? They're not necessarily going to be members or amateurs or people who maybe come from abroad for golf lessons. Kids, whoever. I don't just want to teach one wealth demographic. I want to teach anybody who wants to get better. But very much players who want to big tournaments. And so I was thinking, well, my family's all in this area, just got a newborn child, my wife's business is in this area, it's not like I can just up sticks and go live in America, or I could have done, but it wasn't something I was sort of considering. So for 23 years, I'd driven past this golf hole on the A30 that I kept looking up at, thinking, I genuinely thought it was Sunningdale Old Course at the time.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody, I don't know exactly how it came up, and they said, well, that's Sunningdale Ladies, but they've got no driving range there or anything like that. And my brain thinking, well, the future of golf, etc., I was thinking, well, indoor golf, for me, I think is exciting because you can control the environment. If it can be accurate. I'd had a TrackMan for probably at that point, getting on for, 2008, I think I bought my first one. So I probably had my TrackMan at that point for getting on for 8-9 years. And really believed in them, knew the guys in Denmark a little bit. And I thought, well, there could be an opportunity here. So we approached the golf club and said, look, we'd like to potentially do an indoor golf studio. Have you got any space? They said, well, we don't.
Is this prior to knowing
prior
anything
to
about
be involved in any way, shape or form.
Okay.
So we were just like, well, could we, would you be interested? And they were like, well, yeah, okay. So long story short, they built the building and we hired it, rented it from them. And
that's the building we're sat in right now.
That's the building we're sat in now. And Tom, myself, and an investor, who was a guy I was teaching at the time, paid to kit it out and to have all the tech in it. And we went through all the hoops of, trying to find what we thought would be the best tech, the best way of laying it out, make sure the room was a certain size that, so when the club built it, it was purpose built. It wasn't trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It was built purposely for this. And then we had this for about 18 months, and one of this investor at the time said, look, this golf course is amazing, but there's so much more we could do with it. Do you think the club would sell it to us? Thinking this, come on.
Such investor thought.
So I'm like, he's a great guy. I was like, Dom, this golf club is, well over 100 years old. It's owned by the members. It's on this, one of the most iconic brands within golf, Sunningdale. It's got that link to it.
Yeah.
No, I don't. He said, well, have you asked? I was like, well, no, I haven't. So anyway, Tom and I went and spoke to him and said, look, would this be of interest that we could invest in the golf course? And they said, well, actually, what's your proposal? Because it could be of interest. So we put a proposal to the board at the time, and they said, yeah, actually, we really, really like that. And
so what was the thought process there? Why did they want to move away from...
Just they knew they needed investment. I think the golf club had fallen on some challenging times. They knew that they needed some investment to get it back to where it was. It was not what it was now. The membership had transferred from a ladies to a men's course, but it had a very, very small junior membership. It had a small men's membership and a large ladies membership.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, offering really what it was able to offer. We could see the potential, but it needed the investment in order to fulfill that. And so, we then were like, okay, that's serious, Dom. And he was like, okay, great. He was our investor. He's like, Dom, that's serious. And he said, okay, right. Well, I'm about to move to Italy, having lived in London for the last 20 years as a French national, but England was his home for 25 years. But he said, I'm about to relocate to Italy. I'm still fully behind you. This is a great idea, but you need to find another investor who's going to be more, on site.
Yeah.
So Tom was like, yeah, okay, right, where do we find somebody who, we think would really fit in with us well and work well with what, our visions are and whatever. And Tom had a client at the time, Mark, and he was just talking to him. He's like, yeah, I'd love to. So we kind of brought him in, and then we started speaking to the members, proposals. We needed to get a vote, obviously, to get the members to buy in. We needed 75%, which at the time we were a bit daunted by. We got 96%, I think it was.
Wow.
So that was great. We were honest with him. He said, look, this is our vision for what we think.
So what did you offer? Because you must be offering something pretty good for them to take it.
So
obviously I'm not talking financially. I'm talking about sort of what we were offering in terms of, the product out there.
So we knew that, the piece of land that it sat on was fantastic. Its location, the layout was all beautiful, but it was struggling condition wise.
Yeah.
From a golf course clubhouse ambience, it was very dated. The greenkeepers' compound sheds were dilapidated to the point they were falling down. All their machinery was literally held together with rubber bands. It was literally, if one machine broke, they'd try and nick a piece off of an old donor machine they had in the corner to try and find a part that might make this other thing. So it was just, fell on challenging times. And, this was all pre-COVID, before we had the golf boom. So we kind of gave them a vision as what we wanted for as a club, and it was all about inclusivity. So what we wanted to build was a golf club that was inclusive. It was a welcoming golf club for everybody, but we wanted to get the golf club as challenges. Can we get the golf club as good as our neighbours? So we've got some lovely golf courses in this area. How do we get our golf course in as good condition as these others? How do we offer the same playing services? Is that possible, or is it not? And that's still our goal now, because we're built on the same piece of land. We're built in the same way. So how can we achieve this?
For people that maybe not so familiar with the area that we're sat in.
So we are literally, we share a boundary with Sunningdale Old Course. We were built in 1902, so we were built in between. They built the old originally. Then one of their members, or a group of their members, decided to build a ladies' golf course, which was next door. And then after they built us, they built the new course. Now, we don't have any official relationship other than we share, a similar plot of land and boundary. We have a very good relationship, but we're not in any way the same club.
But what we do now is Willie Park Jr. on Sunningdale Old. Yeah. And then Harry Cole went in to be secretary.
He was secretary over there, and at that point he got involved with designing here.
And he's so we've got pretty high confidence levels. Harry Cole's pretty much.
Yeah. Everything leads us to believe that he was one of the architects who kind of laid down the footprint.
And you've got, obviously Sunningdale's just over the boundary, but you've got Swinley Forest nearby, Wentworth nearby. It's just that the land around here is replete with wonderful golf.
When you play it it resembles all of these lovely heathland golf courses that we see, whether it's New Zealand, whether it's the Berkshire, whether it's Sunningdale, whether it's Wentworth, they all have a very similar feel. Although they're all designed very differently by different people, the feel of them is very, very similar. And we're very fortunate, the way we were built, one can only assume at the time would have been in the same way because it was built by, that same era of people.
Yeah. Apologies for the interruption, but we have an urgent piece of Kimmel-related news. Our friends over at VRSD, pronounced Wurst, a luxury spirit company with an eye for quality, have recently launched their fourth creation to join vodka, red vermouth and gin in the lineup. And it's Kimmel, a British Kimmel. Jamie and the rest of the team are huge golf geeks and have been working on their British concoction for over a year now to bring some choice back to the British Kimmel market, which has fallen away in recent years, a spirit that many of our listeners will no doubt be familiar with. The guys sent us over a bottle and I can confirm it is really good stuff. In creating this, they wanted to make a spirit that was unmistakably Kimmel-y and respectful to the history of the drink. The familiar notes of caraway and fennel seeds are impeccably balanced against the botanicals of mint and rose. How this is served is entirely up to you, but the guys at Wurst highly recommend pouring directly from the freezer. Customers must be over 18. For more information on Wurst, head over to their website where listeners of the podcast will receive a 25% discount on their order. Simply use the code CookieJar at checkout. That's all one word, CookieJar at checkout. And without further ado, it's back to the podcast. I suppose what this place has, though, that none of those other places have, is its length and its...
Yeah.
So I've got the card in front of me. I've just pulled it with me. I'm sure you don't need the card. But this has got to be probably the only short course in the area?
I don't know of many others. I think there may be one or two others in the country, but that's it. There's certainly none in the south of England, certainly in this area that I'm aware of.
So I've got the card. I'll talk about it, well, in men's and women's, but it's par 58 for the men, 61 for the women.
Yeah.
And for the men, it's 3,700 yards,
Yeah.
and for it's the same for the ladies.
Yeah.
So it's short.
It is, and it's one of these things that
it's 18 holes. I must say, it's
18 holes. Yeah.
18 holes.
And everyone turns up and they go, "Oh, really?" It's a kind of a is this a Mickey Mouse golf course? Is it going to be like a chip and putt kind of a thing? What's going on here? And then they go out and fun, and I can hand on heart say everyone comes back and says that was great fun because we've got par fours, but they are almost drivable for some people.
Yeah.
But you can easily make a double bogey. But then we've got par threes at 230 plus yards long.
Yeah.
So
you've got some mammoth par threes.
Yeah.
You've got some absolute monsters.
Yeah, and they're not. Again, if you picture the tough par threes at these other courses we've mentioned, and then you make them longer. So if you go and play some of these other golf courses that we were talking about, they don't have par threes at the length that we have them.
Yeah.
And some of them are actually par fours for ladies.
Yeah.
But for men, it's a challenging par three, and for ladies, they're challenging par fours.
Well, I think if you want to get good at your iron play.
Yeah.
There's not many places in the world that's better to come than a place like this where you pretty much know you're going to hit 80% of your shot. Well, 90% of your non-putting shots with irons. It's just nothing but it's an iron fest.
Well, and working with tour players or good amateurs, for many years I worked with a statistician, Chris Sells, who worked with some of the best players in the world, and he's one of the things that I remember him always drumming into players is your par threes. And I think one thing that Tom and I, a message we'd like to start conveying is for better players to come and play here because it's actually got more relevance almost to them than it has anybody else. Because if you want to get better, your par three scoring average is where you can make some inroads. Every golfer can. If you look on tour every week, what are the hardest holes on a golf course? They're typically par threes. Yeah. Certainly from a scoring average as a group. So I think the message we'd like to start getting out there is get more and more good players. We do have a lot of good players that come, but we'd like to try and get that message out there more. Is to say to come and play here because I think from a skill acquisition point of view, very small greens, very undulating golf course, long holes to par threes. that are very visually appealing as well. I think it's got a lot to offer the really good players.
Yeah, I mean, you think about most golf courses, good players, scratch players.
Yeah,
that they don't have to hit long irons.
No,
it's just not a thing. They usually hit big drives and mid irons or short irons. Where obviously this place here, I'm looking, you've got a 213 yard par 3, a 232 yard par 3. They're both on the front nine. Back nine, you've got a 241 yard par 3 and 236 yard par 3. So they're long,
exactly.
This isn't easy.
But then we've got some at 150. What have we got? Some at 154s. 100.
Yeah,
we've got 100,
so
we've got a real mixture, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And I kind of, you look at it and you think, well, take away the par of the course. You are practicing hitting a long iron into a small target, which again, from a skill acquisition point of view, is great.
Do you know the course record? It can't be much lower.
No, well, typically, depending on obviously changing tees and whatever else, but 4 under.
Yeah, I'm not surprised
on
at all.
Sort of the current layout.
Yeah,
which is tough. I don't know anybody that that's, and these are. We have a lot of events here. A winter series made up of ex-European Tour players, Ryder Cup players, good players that are shooting these numbers. But rarely do people get it more than 1 or 2 under par for 18 holes. Very, very rare.
I came away the first time we visited. So this is Course Diaries of Sunningdale Heath Mark II, the first return of, because we Sam and I came really early on. In sort of this a couple of years back. When sort of earlier on in the podcast, and I can see where we sat now. We're just in the teaching studio, looking over the clubhouse, and we sat out the front and talked about it. And I was quick to tell everyone I shot 63. It's like, I shot 63. I'm not going to tell you the par was 58,
but
I shot
a 63 round, 5 over, is good golf. It's because I say the greens are tiny, and they are. The golf course is undulating. That the bunkers, places. It's definitely the one thing that everyone always comes back and says how much fun they had playing the golf course. But very rarely do people beat their handicaps, which again, when they first look at the scorecard, I'll never forget, we had, just after lockdown, we had a clutch mini tour pro event here. And we had some very, very good players. And the idea behind the event, it was with Modest Golf, was we wanted it to be all off the same tees ideally. And
this is a mixed event, was it?
Mixed event,
okay,
so men, women, and players with disabilities.
Okay.
And the idea being was exactly the ethos of the club as to be inclusive. But the thinking was, well, why don't we just have one trophy, one prize fund, everyone plays for it. So it's as fair as it can get, because the golf course lends itself to that.
Yeah.
And there was a few tweaks and from tees, but pretty much you're all playing from identical tees. There was a few small changes, and I think I'm right in saying that the final sort of leaderboard of the top 10 was not far off 50-50 male to female, and that was something that we really are proud of. Was the fact that we it genuinely can be a fair golf course to regardless of length. But I'll never forget, we were in the day before the event, a lot of people coming here for practice rounds. We had people like Laura Davis playing, Trish Johnson, Robert Rock, Stephen Brown. It was, it was a really good event.
Decent players.
Really good event. And there was a pro in there, I couldn't remember who it was, and he was like, oh, crikey. He hadn't played it at this point. He just looks at the scorecard. He's like, what do you reckon is going to win around here? 4, 5, 6 under a round
40,
per each round.
49.
Exactly. And I'm like, no chance. He's like, it's only, he's looking at the yardage.
Yeah.
And anyway, clearly when he came back in, he had a very different opinion.
Yeah.
Because he was like, that was not what I expected. And that's the thing, is people so often look at the scorecard, form an opinion, and then go out and play it and have a completely different opinion. And I think that's one of the challenges we've got, is that the golf club, they say when we bought it, I'd driven past it for 20 odd years, didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
People don't know it exists, and even if they do, don't really understand it.
Yeah.
And that's our
It's certainly got a
challenge.
very specific place within the golfing landscape. Talk to me a little bit. So with the geography of the course is quite strange, because it's fully dissected by one road. There is another road that goes up, an access road to people's houses that goes up towards the 5th, 6th hole.
Yeah.
But this part that we're on houses 4
we've
golf
got
holes?
we've got 4 holes on this side. Yeah.
And you can kind of shut this bit off.
So on a Sunday morning, we shut it
people.
off. So on a Sunday morning,
Yeah.
we will, as an example, the members know and are fully supportive of it. If you tee off before 9 o'clock, you can just play the first 14 holes.
Yeah.
Because these final ones we have for junior coaching. So we have typically 3 or 4 golf coaches out here teaching all morning. We'll probably get 60 plus children out here.
Wow.
All in small groups though, so no more than a group of 4 to 5 in each group, and 1 hour lessons, and we just rotate that for sort of 4 or 5 hours. But
so within that you've got a shortish par 3, a
decent par 4,
a 300-yard par 4.
Yeah.
Oh, doesn't matter what the par is for kids, is it? But a 300-yard hole and then a couple of sort of 150-yard holes coming in. And they just get free run at it.
Yeah, so basically our theory is teaching children to play golf on the golf course. So we're very much, because we don't have a driving range, it was kind of a bit by default.
Yeah.
But Tom and I, as coaches before even coming here, were very much about, people must take lessons on the golf course, not having too many golf lessons in driving ranges or what have you. So we teach the children. We use the golf studios sometimes to teach them, but effectively they're taught all their technique out on the golf course. So they're learning to play golf from day one.
Wow. And are they all members or are they?
No. The majority are. We've got over 100 junior members now, which is brilliant. And they're active.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're active. And in the afternoon on a Sunday, we have a junior tournament where they go out and play. So we have So is it shut down for the whole day then? No. We just reserve tee times in the afternoon. Okay. So in the morning, it's reserved till 12 o'clock.
Just on this little loop.
On this side. So if you tee off at 9, you know that you're only going to get 14. But the members, very, very supportive of it, because we're trying to grow the game. We're trying to be a family golf club. So a lot of the parents might go out and play while the children are here and they listen.
Nice. Just drop the kids off. Go play. Because you could probably play the other 14 holes.
Yeah. Well, you can play here. 18 holes, typically you can play in 2.5 hours.
So if you're only playing 14, you can do like an hour 45, 2 hours, and drop the kids off for 2 hours, and then
and so children have a great time. But then in the afternoon, those that are capable will have competitions.
Oh, nice.
In the afternoon. And
my son's 4. Is that too early?
That's a great question. So I remember when I was at Wentworth, and he's now in his mid-20s. I was teaching this young lad. He was 3.5 at the time. He'd come along for these golf lessons. We do free. I started this thing where on a Saturday afternoon we do 1 hour. And it sounds crazy now when you sort of think of it as a great opportunity. But it was a 1 hour free golf lesson to anybody. Didn't have to be a Wentworth member. You could be anybody.
Really?
Could come and have this 1 hour free golf lessons. And then we put it up. It got so popular we had to charge £5. But the idea being, we just wanted to do something to give back. Let's just do an hour. Let's just do it for fun. Why not? And there's this little 3.5. Again, he wasn't a member. But he turned up and he was just phenomenal. He was just absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I remember him. But no, I don't think you can put an age on it, if I'm being honest with you. I think it's whenever is right for the individual.
What's a typical age range for you out there?
We're probably, I'd say the 8 or 9 is where we kind of see children, really starting a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
Some is younger than that.
They can't concentrate for longer than that.
I think that's the thing, is you want them to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And when they can hold their concentration, that's the thing, is as individuals they're all different.
Yeah.
But generally, when can they hold their concentration and really make use of the lesson? It's not a babysitting service. We're actually trying to get these young children to play golf.
Yeah.
And they love it. I think being out there on the golf course is what they love.
Yeah.
So these boys and girls are out there seeing what mum and dad do.
And do the parents walk around with them, or
no? Typically, we just
leave them
do. We've got the golf pros out there, and we'll have 4 golf pros out there, and they'll have 4 to 5 children max each with them, and we'll do that from sort of 9 o'clock all the way through to 12, and then the older ones, sort of from 11, 12 onwards, we'll have a competition in the afternoon. We've got some fantastic support from the members from an organisation point of view, junior organisers and what have you. Really, really lucky to have them. They help manage it massively.
Yeah.
We won our county league this year for the first time. We haven't had a junior squad.
Yeah.
For more than 4 years probably. Yeah. We took over, like I say, literally just before COVID. So I think we took over in the November, and then we had the first lockdown in the March or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So we kind of had a bit of a disruptive start, but even during that, we've managed to get this junior section, which was a big part of what we wanted to do. Both of our investors were very passionate about developing the game and, trying to get children involved.
It's a tightrope, though, isn't it? Because the reality is junior golfers don't bring any money.
No, they don't.
It is a real.
But where's the future going to come from if we don't encourage them? And rightly or wrongly, that's never been at the forefront of our minds.
Yeah.
Which I can say that hand on heart.
Yeah.
The golf club has to be run as a robust business. It has to be, we've never, to the membership, to it, when we were doing our proposals, we always said we wanted to make it run where it would run as a robust business and look after itself. But it's very much a community club. Yeah. We're very aware that we are surrounded by some stunning golf courses, but they all have hefty joining fees or long waiting lists. And we were in the fortunate position that we had neither. So, we're just over 1,600 a year, yearly membership. Junior fees are roughly, they change slightly depending on the age, but roughly £200. But we're very much about a community club. And one of the things we regularly get comments on is how friendly and how welcoming the golf club is. And people, I think enjoy coming up, even if it's just for a social cup of coffee, a glass of wine, whatever it might be.
The bacon sandwiches,
the lunch, whatever. And that's what we wanted. So we wanted to create a slightly different type of golf club to a lot of the others. We said at the time we cannot compete with anybody in the area. Purely on length, if you like, nothing else. Yeah, we are unique, but that needs to be our strength, and we want to be a community golf club as well. So we want to be. We have lots of members who are members at a lot of these other golf clubs, but they use us more as their family golf club, where they will bring their
practice fizzing long irons.
Exactly. So we are a real mixture of what type of people we have up here in terms of their abilities or their ages or their backgrounds. It is a real eclectic mix, and that's something that we love. That it's a real even playing field.
Has it given you any sleepless nights?
Plenty.
Has it been stressful?
Yeah. From the point of view, like I say, a couple of months after taking over, we got COVID hitting us. Yeah. That wasn't in the budget. That wasn't in the business plan at all. But we got through it. We've committed to, we have two families who are investors, if you like, and they have been extremely supportive. And Tom and I might come up with some fairly crazy ideas at times, but they fully, buy into what we're trying to achieve here, and they're very involved. But yeah, there's been times, where you're kind of, looking at things and they say, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this particular part work or whatever?
It's quite hard to turn off, isn't it, when you're in charge or something?
Yeah, it's been and Tom and I still teach full time as well. Yeah. So, we're still giving, 30 plus hours of lessons a week.
I get the impression you enjoy teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Were you ever a competitive golfer? Was that ever like when you turned pro? Was
no. I think I've told many people this story. I grew up at a little tiny golf club in Hampshire, and I started playing when I was about 13, 14. And typically you join the golf club and there was about 6 or 7 other kids that were members there. And one of the kids was Justin Rose, who was a 12-year-old kid at the time, and I was 2 years older than Justin. And even then, I'm no genius, but I could work out this guy is playing different sport to me at 12. And then he, after 2 or 3 years, he moved on to another golf club not far away. But I got to 17, 18. I was like, I didn't really want to go to university. And I wanted to do golf, but I knew straight away by that point, playing with Justin as a kid made me realise that there's talent, and this guy's in a different league. Not even close.
There's getting by and looking okay, and then there's
exactly.
Justin
and actually,
Rose.
And hold there. If that's the difference, us age, say 16 at the time, 15, that kind of era. It's only going to be worse when we get into our 20s. Yeah. So I thought, well, okay, what do I want to do? And I was like, well, if I couldn't win in some big tournaments, maybe I could try and teach someone to win some. Yeah. I was always fascinated by the golf swing. I was probably more interested in the golf swing than I was hitting golf balls.
Really?
Yeah, the science behind it, or the thought processes behind it, and I love being part of a team. So I liked, as got more and more into my coaching, building teams around players. But yeah, no, I knew day one. Even I started at Wentworth when I was 19, I think. I had no ambition of playing because I just knew I was never going to be good enough.
Yeah.
I've seen what good is, and I could hit balls 23 hours a day for the rest of my life. It's never going to happen.
Well, incidentally, the first time your name came on our podcast was almost 200 episodes ago. You know that?
No,
makes me feel old when you say it. Iona Stephen, when she talked about when she talked about when she entered this program to make basically she'd been playing for, I don't know where it was like 18 months, and she got to like 3 or something, and then she got on board with Clive Woodward, Dave Allred,
that's
and
right.
I believe an hitherto unknown gentleman chap by the name of Kristian Baker, who had coached her. So what was all that then?
So literally my boss at the time at Wentworth, I was as head of instruction, Stephen Gibson, said to me, would you be interested in doing a program with Clive Woodward? And so Clive Woodward was somebody who I remember the first time I spoke to him, he was playing a program at Wentworth. We used to do lots of charity events, and he was and asking about his little black book that I was reading about, and some people talk about that he used for coaching. I said, you wouldn't have one, would you? I'd love one. He must have thought, what is this guy? And he genuinely, he said, I'm going to go home and have a look, and if I've got a spare one, I'll email you and I'll send it to you. And he emailed me back. He said, unfortunately, I haven't. And that was the last I heard, until I got this message from Stephen saying, would you be interested in working with him with a golfer? And he's one of the greatest coaches that's ever lived, and I was absolutely, love to. So anyway, we first meet at Wentworth, and in walks Iona, who's just been playing golf for 18 months and wants to be the best player in the world. I'm thinking, okay, well, this sounds fun. Let's give it a go. And yeah, I could hand on heart say she was possibly one of the most talented players I've ever worked with.
Really? Good?
Good in every sense. So good in natural ability, just oozed natural ability, but work ethic like you've never seen.
Yeah, she was a
determination.
badminton player or something, or squash.
She was a hockey player,
hockey.
and could have gone to, I believe, an American university to play.
Okay.
Hockey. So she's a very talented sports person, and I think she started off of 4. I think I'm right in saying, and within the first year, 12 months, she was down to +3. And bearing in mind that's
working with yourself and
all the other team, all the other team, and that was on the old handicap system. So obviously it's very different. It's only you can only get cut in competitions and whatever else. And I think I'm right in saying in that first year she set 3 course records, 2 of which were around Wentworth.
Wow.
And like I say, day one she turned up, and her technique was pretty raw, if being honest, because she hadn't had a huge amount of golf lessons. She hadn't been playing long enough.
Yeah.
And this program was designed to really give her an education in all of golf.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was an absolute delight to work with. Absolute delight.
What was it like? Just being interrupted by your rude general manager. What was it? What was it like working with these other great coaches?
For me, that's just.
Did you manage to pick anything up, or
just Clive, probably the most.
Really?
Working with Clive. Yeah, he's thinking outside the box and his attention to detail, and I think something I've always known was you're going to get out what you put in.
Yeah.
And in Iona, they had the perfect student. Her determination to be, the best possible golfer she could be, and could that be world number 1? She was going to give it everything she had. And I think working with someone like Clive was just the things. I remember one that sticks to mind. He was talking about the grip. He was like, okay, well, how do you practice your grip? You put your hands on the golf club and you tell her where to put them, and this was one of the early conversations.
Yeah,
but how's she going to know that? How's she going to practice it every day? So what we did was we took a like this microphone I'm holding, like a golf grip, but it's made out of plasticine, a clay.
Yeah,
and we took her perfect grip, and then she just gently pushed her hands into the clay. We led it to set, and then she had 3 or 4 of these, and she'd just leave them around the house in her car. She could practice her grip constantly.
Really?
Just that was one example. Little things like that we would constantly be challenging. How is the best way of doing it? So everything got challenged.
Really?
Everything. He would challenge everything we were doing.
Just every facet of
Why are you doing it that way?
Yeah.
And I learned so much from him. You know, he
it's quite a powerful question. Why, isn't it?
Exactly. And there
Why
was
do
a
you do
why
like
to
that?
everything.
Yeah.
Why do you need to do this? Why do you need to do that? How are you going to do this? Is that the best way? Why, you know, so we'd question everything.
Yeah.
And by doing that, quite often you'd actually go, why do we do that? And, you know, I remember him giving me the story about, you know, why they changed the traditional rugby shirts to the slim fitting lycra ones they wear now.
Makes sense. Makes complete sense now, doesn't it?
It does, but if nobody challenged it, why, you know, nobody would ever, would be still
Just
wearing
what
them
we
now.
wear, yeah.
Excuse me. So, I think working with people like, we had a physio on board. We have Dr. Mark Ball, biomechanist. We had a personal trainer. We had Dave Allred, who you mentioned, a guy called Tag Lanch. And everything was just looking at it from a non-golf perspective, effectively. So typically as a golf coach, we would traditionally look at it and go, well, we've got a swing.
Yeah.
And we get that good and we win tournaments. And through this, we would go, okay, well, we've got a statistician, we've got all these other things, and let's really break it down and learn from it. And at the top of that, we had this athlete that was willing to do whatever was required to achieve.
Yeah, I get the sense that she would go above and beyond. She's quite driven.
Out of all the players I've worked with, I could say she's the hardest working.
Really?
The most dedicated, ambitious.
Was that program? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This could be the wrong series of events. Did she get injured before that program finished?
Yeah, right at the very end.
So, was that program? Does it still exist? Was it seen as a success? How? Because obviously she couldn't.
Yeah, I think at that
couldn't
point,
carry on doing.
No,
because she was injured,
sadly, this which she's sort of recently documented herself. But so that ended the program for her because of she had an injury which she's documented.
Yeah.
But it has to be a success. Okay, she did get on to become world number one, or even forge a professional career. But I think if you can get down 7 shots at that level in a year, had things been different, I think they've been. How good could she have been? Yeah.
Do you think? I suppose the experiment was can you create the best golfer out of someone that started late in the game? Do you still believe that's something that can be achieved?
Definitely. Yeah, I think Greg Norman would be an example of somebody who took up the game late and went on to achieve greatness. I think it's a little bit of it's a complete misconception that you have to start playing golf at age 4 to be the superstar. Yes, that was Rory McIlroy, but it doesn't mean it's the only way. Yeah. It was, clearly it was the right way for him, and he was that superstar and Tiger Woods and what have you. But it doesn't mean it's the only way. Yeah. So I think, is it possible to have somebody transition from another sport and learn the skills that they've learned? I think a lot of the physical, mental skills that you learn playing other sports, and you take up golf at age 12, 13. Absolutely, I think you could go on and have a fantastic career.
Just kind of rounding it all off, I suppose. We're sat here in your teaching studio. Yourself and Tom Reed, which we've not mentioned by name in full just yet. Tom Reed's the other co-owner. Who's teaching pro here. Is there much competition between you two when it comes to teaching?
No, not at all. I think I'm very competitive as a coach. I mean, if you and I went out and played golf now, I'd struggle to, if you beat me, I really couldn't care.
Yeah.
But as a coach, I'm very competitive.
Really?
Very. But no, Tom and I work very much together. So we'll share ideas. I'll quite often show him a golf swing and say, what do you think to this? He'll do the same. So no, we very much work together in that sense. And
do you have different strengths and weaknesses, or? I know neither of you have weaknesses. What am I talking about? Do you have different strengths?
I think we're very similar. So we actually do share some clients.
Yeah.
Some good players who we both work with. I think Tom definitely has a passion for teaching younger players. He's the one who's done all of our junior program here. That's been his brainchild. He's driven that to the success it is now. So I think, we share a lot of similar philosophies. We'll talk about the golf swing constantly. And, if there's a player who I've got some questions with, I'll, so I don't think we're competitive in that sense. No, both of us, I think, have very much the approach towards coaching that you don't own a student.
Yeah.
A student is coming to you to get better. And if I can get them better by asking his opinion, then I'm going to do it. It's not a case of they're my student and I'm the only one that can speak to them. We're the complete opposite. So we'll try and share ideas as much as possible. Or if there's something, I've been working on this for 2 lessons now and it's not getting any better. What have you got any thoughts? We'll always ask each other. So we're constantly talking in that sense.
We've been lucky enough to speak to quite a lot of coaches, teaching professionals on the podcast, and there are certainly different ways to approach it. And there's some people that just purely think about intent, and I want to fade the ball, I want to draw the ball. There are some that are very mechanical. There are some think swing, something shot. What's your philosophy in fit within all that tapestry?
One of my crazy ideas was to write a book, and that was great because exactly what you were saying there, it gave me time to reflect on what I actually believe in. And one of the people I met many years ago was a statistician, and what I realized is everything as a coach we should be doing should be evidence-based, in my opinion. So trying to make as much as what we do evidence-based versus opinion-based. And what I mean by that is ideally, whether it's through TrackMan data, whether it's through stats from the golf course, whether it's through your scores, whatever it might be, we should start with as much evidence as we possibly can. And video can form part of that. And then how we build your golf swing is very much around, okay, well, what is the data telling us? And then what would we like to see? And then the opinion is, how do we create that? So I think my thinking is very much around, let's get all the information about what's happening. Well, then what would you like to do? What would you like to see happen? So if you're, producing data and evidence from the golf course or in the studio that is showing one particular type of ball flight, and you say, yeah, but I don't like that, I want to do the opposite. Okay, well, how are we going to achieve that? Well, this is what we factually know needs to change. Then we come up with an opinion of the best, quickest way of doing that. But I think as well, then it's very much about a student and coach working together. So it's us coming up with the ideas, because I don't know all of your journey. You might have some of the things we've spoken about, you might have tried before and they've not worked. Well, there's no point in keep trying. So I think there's very much a student coach journey that needs to happen together. But very much it's, I say, using evidence to show your improvement as well. So if during the lesson we say, right, we're going to do X, Y, Z, that's my opinion, that's how we're going to change what we want, well, we need to track that progress. So are we getting improvement from a, data perspective, from a ball flight perspective, from a scoring perspective? What is the data showing? Take emotion out of it. What is the actual raw data telling us? If your scores aren't improving, okay, but why not? Actually, your driving's improved massively, your iron shots have, but your chipping and putting, has massively dropped off. And your scores might say, actually, you're not improving. But when we actually look in a little deeper, we can see that 80% of your game's improving, which is the part we've been working on, but the other part hasn't. So trying to take that out of just the emotion and the headlines and what's really coming out from behind. So do you encourage students to use things like Arcos or Clip? Yeah, anything like Up Game. Mentioned before, Chris Sells is a guy who I've worked with for a long time. He's by far, he's an absolute genius when it comes to analysing golf games. I've been sat in meetings with him before where he's come up with things that, unless you had the data, I would never have spotted in a million years. Really? Just an absolute genius. And then, it's building teams around things. So you with a student, what do they need? Whether it's, and bespoke to them. So I think, if there's a swing change that we're struggling with, is it a physical reason they can't do it, and therefore we need to bring in a professional to look at it?
Yeah.
Or is it equipment? And therefore, I know my role, and I think that was highlighted within the Clive project, is very small. There's,
there's a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of moving parts. And the more professionals we can bring in to support it, the better. So I think as a golf coach, we play a role, but there might be physios, there might be biomechanists, there might be equipment professionals, there's statisticians, they're all different things. So what is right for the individual? And everyone comes in, they've got their own agenda. Actually, I just want to break 90.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you don't need, and I got a budget that allows me to have one lesson a month. Okay, well, we'll do the best with that. Everybody's got a different agenda when they turn up for a golf lesson, or I want to be 1-on-1. Okay, well, what resources have we got to do that? And we work within those resources.
This is really sidetracking, but I'm only leaning on my own golfing experience here. Do you find it really frustrating when you teach someone something and you're like, okay, well, now you just need to go away and do this, and you see them in a month and you're like, did you do it? And they say, nope.
No, because that's life. That's life. And I think, part of the reason I truly believe in what we've got as a golf course is beneficial is 2.5 hours to play 18 holes. Life is busy. How many, having 5 hours to, play around a golf and a drink afterwards is becoming harder and harder, I think, now with people's lives, because, our lives are very busy. And the fact you've got busy lives means that some weeks, because of family or other hobbies or work, gets in the way and you don't get a chance to practice. That's just life. So no, I think that's, one question I'd always ask at the start of a golf lesson is, again, honesty has to be paramount. So I'll always be 100% honest with the student. Good, bad, they need the honesty. But the student has to be honest on the way back. Actually, what you told me last lesson didn't work. Okay, why not? Was it, hopefully it was the right information based on all the testing that we've done, and we know that the facts are the facts. But was the message that I delivered incorrect, or was it misunderstood, or what was the reasons behind it? But I think it's very much about, let's say, having this honesty, and somebody coming into a lesson saying that, you know what, I've got a busy family life, I've got a season ticket for such and such a football club, and I work 100 hours a week. You're not going to get a lot of practice in, are you? If you get 18 holes and you've done well. Okay, so what could we do that maybe you could practice at home? Yeah. So when you're sat there watching the TV, going back to Clive's,
get your grip out.
These sorts of things. So how do we've got to fit golf into people's lives. Very few people can change their life just to get better at golf.
Yeah.
So if they can give us an hour of practice a week, great. But the reality is a lot of people can't. So how do we fit my teaching into their life?
Yeah.
Okay, look, I want you just to do this in front of the mirror for 2 minutes a day. Can you do that? If you've got 2 minutes you can give me every day to stand in front of the mirror and practice your pivot in an XYZ way, because we've identified that's the problem. And if they do that 5 times a week, great. That will make a big difference. So it's looking at it and going, everybody's individual. Everybody that walks in here they've got a different story to tell. Their lives are different. Their intentions are different. Their abilities are different. And as a coach, we need to fit into them.
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
As a final question, I will thank you in advance for giving me your time. I'm looking out over a wintry Sunningdale Heath. We just had a freezing cold last couple of weeks. What's your ambition for that course out there? What would you like it to be?
I'd like to. I think Tom and I have always spoken about getting it to be the best short course in the world. So I think we'd love to get it as good as our neighbouring golf courses, but remain a club that's open to all, which is kind of we're asking for the impossible really there, aren't we, in traditional senses? But I think we've never done traditional.
Well, what do they say? Aim for the stars and you might get to the moon. So
exactly. And you know what? If we know that what we as I said earlier, we've got to be the best version of us. And, can we get it as good as our neighbours? But can we still be a golf club that is accessible for all?
That closes 4 holes down every Sunday morning. And
absolutely. How do we genuinely grow the game? How do we actually make it accessible to all? You know, we've done some fantastic corporate things this year, where we've took some. Can I tell a story quickly?
Yeah. No, there's no rush. I'm not in a rush. You tell all the stories you want.
So
Kristian.
this was a company called I think I said AIG, the insurance company who sponsored the Ladies British Open, and through a company who approached us called Mint Greens, who they were working with, and they said, look, would you be interested in doing this project with AIG? And Tom and I were like, yeah, I'd love to. What is it about? And we kind of then started speaking to them, and they were just amazing. You know, their chief executive, I think it was, we met at in London at the launch of it, and basically he knew that, you know, they were sponsoring the Ladies British Open and doing great things there, but how do we actually get more ladies playing golf? So he gave them an amazing opportunity, and their staff, a couple of them really, really bought into it and pushed it, where all beginners, they would come down and have a golf lesson, and they probably had 8, 9 in the year, where they come down here, again, every lesson, all beginners. Some have played maybe a couple of times or whatever, all ladies, and we go out on the golf course. So day one, we close off these holes, and we take these sort of 15, 20 ladies out onto the golf course and teach them from day one from scratch. And what they didn't know at the time was that they were then going to play the golf course straight after the Ladies British Open on the Monday morning.
Oh, really?
In the Pram. And they've gone from day one not knowing golf, not touching a golf club, not even knowing anything about it, some of them, to Pro-Am Monday morning on the golf course where the British Open's just finished, and they all played great. So it proves what can be done, and these are the things that we keep on thinking, you know, what other opportunities are out there to really change golf? How can we, you know, get more? Because most people would say, within a year, could you go and play in a Pro-Am the day after the British Open on the British Open golf course, having had 8 lessons and a bit of practice in between? Most people say, oh, no, I couldn't do that, I don't want to do that, whatever. These ladies did it, and they absolutely smashed it. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. You know, we're out there, and as you know, that's genuinely growing the game. You know, and it's things like that we're just looking at and thinking, okay, well, what can we do that's fun? And that was great fun. I mean, you know, it's just looking at different things and saying, well, what a bit like Clive's approach to coaching, you know, but why? What else can we do? You know, and that's the sort of thing. So I think Tom and I are kind of happy to try different things, be a bit disruptive if it's going to be progressive.
I would say, I think for anyone visiting the Surrey area, you know, if you've got these big ticket Surrey courses on the agenda, you really would be missing a trick if you didn't pop by and on the way around and see Sunningdale Heath. I think it's a fabulous little place. It's somewhere that we come to quite a lot. So Kristian Baker, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the podcast and telling us a little bit about yourself and the club, and hopefully we'll hear more from the success of Sunningdale Heath very soon.
I hope so. Thanks very much.
Watch this.